Do superheroes need to be put in check by the government? They have a lot of power that can and has caused a lot of destruction. For the purpose of this video, I'm only going to be thinking of superheroes from America and superheroes that the Sokovia Accords apply to, since it gets a little too complicated when superheroes are the government, like with Thor and the Black Panther. I would like to look at the interaction between superheroes' actions and the reliability of the government. First, if superheroes are all good and they don't make any mistakes, what would be the point of the government getting involved anyway? Now, we can look at all kinds of examples from many different heroes, but we can also look at what superheroes do in a way that exists in our universe that doesn't have any superheroes. What probably makes people most uncomfortable about superheroes is the amount of power that they have. By definition, it seems, superheroes have to be stronger, smarter, and more powerful than the average citizen. The issue that some people see with this is that power corrupts. Certainly, if power corrupts, then all of our favorite superheroes are going to become corrupt eventually. Corruption of people is almost a cliche theme in a lot of culture, but I think that it doesn't really break down the effect of power very well. Excuse me. After all, our favorite superheroes aren't all becoming villains. So what's going on here? In Jeff Brenzel's essay, Why Are Superheroes Good? Comics and the Ring of Gyges, he addresses that perhaps superheroes are good because that's just how superheroes are, and that's the way that they're written. In fact, in early comic book history, there was some legislation passed that comic books have to have good triumph over evil. This seems to support the idea that superheroes' morality is based on how they must be written, but of course this legislation is gone, and we still see similar patterns of superheroes being good and conquering evil. Brenzel decides that instead of being good by definition, superheroes have stronger morals because they have to answer way more questions of morality than anyone else. So the answer here is that people with power have to decide on what they believe to be proper morals just because of their power. However, this explanation has the opposite problem. If people that have power have to decide morals, why is it that we see this pattern of people with power becoming corrupt? To answer this question, we can look at the article Power Corrupts but Control Does Not. What stands behind the effects of holding high positions? In this article, Alexandra Sislak differentiates between two types of power that have opposite effects on people. People can have control over themselves, or people can have power over other people. And she found that people who have power over others were found to be less empathetic and have worse communication skills than those who had control over themselves. People who had control over themselves were the opposite, more empathetic and better communication. When we apply this to superheroes, we find that superheroes certainly have power over themselves, which clearly explains why they do all the good things that they do. This means that we can rely on superheroes being good. Unfortunately, this makes the question of the government's involvement in superhero matters a little more difficult. Despite being good pretty reliably, the government has a good reason to want some control over them. I mean, superheroes have made mistakes, but also a strong American value in government is checks and balances so that no part of the government is more powerful than another. Superheroes that don't have anything to put them in check theoretically undermine the power of the government. This is what we see happen in Captain America Civil War, where the United Nations decides to make superheroes under their jurisdiction. So the conflict that we have now is that superheroes are good, and the government wants to have some checking power over them, but how do we know that the government can be trusted to have this power over superheroes? One of the issues with quantifying trust on such a large scale, such as the American government or the UN, is that the number of people that the government body represents covers so many different cultures that there's almost no agreeable solution to any problem. This issue is presented in the article Beyond Altruism, Globalizing Democracy in the Age of Distrust. News Torbisco Casals discusses how even if there was a global problem that affects everyone, there would still be no agreement on how to solve it. This was used more in context of global warming and other problems like that, but if we apply this to superheroes, they deal with global problems all the time. If they have to wait for permission to go solve a global problem, it might take too long because the government group can't decide on a solution. And then, when they do come up with a solution, there would always be a group of people who think that it was the wrong decision to make. Now, this problem would probably be manageable, since these are the problems that the government deals with every single day. Sometimes they take too long to make a decision, and people will always disagree with whatever decision they make. However, when it comes to who agrees on the solution, it doesn't really matter what any part of the world thinks, but really what the superheroes think. Superheroes, as we have already decided, are good and can be trusted. And in the field of superhero work, they tend to make the right decision, even when they're difficult decisions to make. Therefore, I believe that superheroes will always take action on what they believe is right, regardless of whether they receive permission from any government or not. If superheroes aren't even listening to the government, then there certainly isn't any point in putting any restrictions on them in the first place. The only result of putting them under government control would be to eventually make them criminals, which is counter to what they need. Superheroes are certainly needed to stop the forces of evil in their universe, and the government would only get in their way. Thanks for watching.